Welcome to our podcast, The Words That Make Us.
Consider this time with us as your excuse to take a break from everything.
Every episode, we choose a word that makes us think, wonder, or dream. We read a range of texts that explore different aspects of this word.
And we let our thoughts wander. We hope that yours will too. So grab your favourite tea.
Or a beer.
And join me, Rama.
And me, Tony Bailey. Let's go!
So today's episode is about doubt. So, Tony, how are you this morning?
Are you sure this is a good topic for a podcast?
Are you feeling doubtful about doubt?
I have my doubts about both myself and the topic when it comes to this podcast.
Yeah? I don't know.
Yeah.
This was so much fun for me. It's really interesting.
I don't doubt you. But, yeah, it was an interesting topic. So doubt is what we're talking about today. What do you mean when you hear the word doubt?
So for me, doubt
It's
is...
a bit multifaceted, this topic.
It is.
Because it depends on where you apply it.
I think it's
Right.
just like, I'm looking at it from this, like the human experience, doubt, when you're just going through life not sure of anything. You have doubts about everything, at least if you're a sane person.
Yeah. So my dilemma was thinking about doubt. Doubt, you can either use the concept of doubt to look outwards,
Okay.
or you can use the concept of doubt to look inwards. We're getting
So-
quite philosophical
Yes,
quite
look at
early in this
you.
podcast. Normally, I'm telling jokes about cat's bottoms at this stage. But anyway, at the moment, yeah. So I was thinking about it. So the self-doubt thing, which is obviously a really big
Inwards.
topic,
Yeah.
is all about you. Yeah, the doubt is being conveyed to you and your abilities and your inner self.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the outward-looking doubt is being that kind of cynical person, or doubting the truth or the world around you. That's not right, or that's not correct, or I doubt that that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
And we're playing that game all the time. Everybody, you cannot possibly live in a world without experiencing doubt.
I don't think you would
But-
be a good person if you were
No,
sure
absolutely
about
not.
everything. You have
Yeah.
to have doubt and you have to question everything.
Yeah. So my first go-to point when I'm sort of grappling with what a concept means is obviously go to the dictionary.
Yeah, so what did you find?
So doubt, the feeling of not being certain about something, especially about how good or true it is kind of the
Consensus,
main
yeah.
consensus definition. Sometimes it's about not feeling certain or confident about something, or to think that something is not probable, I guess. But yeah, so that helped, because you can apply that definition both to yourself or to the world around you. I sort of feel like doubt is one of those words where this has become a much bigger issue in our day and age than maybe
Especially with
when
like
we were younger.
false information and all of that.
Yeah, I was always taught not to doubt authority, to trust teachers, to trust the information that you read in the newspapers or the information you were being given. Almost like a blind faith,
Yeah,
almost.
exactly.
Maybe too much.
Yeah.
Maybe too much. But I definitely live in a world now full of doubt about the veracity of what I'm reading or seeing or being told.
Yeah. And I think some of it is healthy, but some of it is unfortunate. Because I think that it's always healthy to look at something with a bit of suspicion.
Yes.
You know, skepticism is a good thing. It makes you wonder, it makes you think, it makes you research. At the same time, we have come to a time where we have lost faith in everyone, the establishment. Nobody is right. No outlet of news outlet is right, and so we have come to question the basics sometimes. Like the flat earthers. Who's like, oh, if the government lied to me about everything, maybe they lied to me about the moon landing. Maybe lied to me about the shape of the earth.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, but there should be some things that we agree on, some foundations, and then we can doubt the rest. But I think this rattled faith has now seeped into everything, which is not good. I don't think it's healthy.
And we then are not able to discriminate between sources. We're just naturally dubious.
Yes.
We don't trust anybody.
Yes.
That sort of trust no one mantra.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter whether it's science and it's well established,
Exactly.
or whether it's some person with their own YouTube channel spouting something.
Yeah.
We've just kind of been programmed now not to trust any of it.
It's like when we did that episode about what was actually the topic when we did vaccines, and how we have taken the MMR vaccines for many years, and it was one of the biggest breakthroughs in science. And then all of a sudden one person says this causes autism, and it just makes everybody doubt it, and then they stop taking it. So it's very, very interesting how you have to have a healthy relationship with doubt and know when to be doubtful and when to just take things at face value.
And I think, like I say, I think there's a real culture shift where we've moved from a people who've been very compliant.
Yeah.
And being compliant is, I'm not saying that's a good thing,
No.
but in general, people would listen to what they were being told by authority or in education, and for the most part, not doubt what they were being told. Either they wouldn't doubt the intention, or they wouldn't doubt the facts or the basis.
Exactly.
Whereas now, I just think everybody's suspicious about everything.
Yeah.
So we're doubting not just the information we're being given, but the motivation for being given it. Why are they telling me this? Is this part of some conspiracy to make, and you can feel it's just a very unhealthy.
And we're doubting the ability as well. It's like, oh, maybe they have it, like it comes from the right place, but do I trust these people to do their job properly, or to know what they're talking about, or to... So it's really interesting.
Also, I hadn't thought about that, but doubting people's competence.
Exactly.
I always used to believe that politicians and
they know what they're talking about.
People in positions of power were competent. But I definitely doubt people's competence now, because I doubt their motives. Because I'm doubting their motives for why they're doing it. I no longer have this faith and belief that people are public spirited and do things for the common good. I guess because of the influence of social media or conspiracy theories or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's part of me now that is doubting everybody's motives.
It's a bit sad.
Yeah, it is. Because it was always reassuring to know that you could have faith and trust.
There are some people where you just don't have to think, and you can just close your eyes and follow them blindly. And to question everyone, it's really interesting. And now I'm thinking about this analogy of the GPS. Like when you're following the GPS and traveling somewhere, a healthy amount of doubt is good, because it can literally lead you into the middle of a lake, like the series The Office. But also, if you question every little detail that this tells you, you're never going to get where you want to get.
So I think it's impossible, isn't it, as a human being, not to experience some sort of doubt. And as a mathematician, that makes complete sense to me, because doubt is about certainty and likelihood. And I think we've talked about this before. That we are programmed as the best probability machines on Earth. We make decisions all the time based around the probability of success or failure, the likelihood of things happening or not. When you turn out of a junction in your car, you're doing it based on knowledge or a feeling of certainty that there's not going to be an accident. So being doubtful, for me, just means there is a small percentage likelihood of it being true or of it happening. So that's not a bad thing. So if I say I doubt that's true, it's not because I'm a negative person. It's just that I'm assessing probabilities.
You're a questioning person.
But I think, and that's the outward-looking doubt. So I see that as like a really good part of your armory. You know how to judge things in a good way so that you can assign doubt where it's due.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's healthy.
But the self-doubt thing, on the other hand, Would you describe yourself as somebody who is riddled with self-doubt? Or
Absolutely. I think I really struggled with imposter syndrome for the longest time.
Yeah.
And of course, it gets better with age and experience. But a lot of the time, I'm like, people will give me compliments, literally. And I'm like, no, that's not true. That is not true. You're just saying that because you like me, not because it's true. And so, like, imposter syndrome has been a big thing in my life for a long time.
I read about imposter syndrome, but can you explain to me what it is? Because I know imposter syndrome, more women than men struggle with it.
Yeah.
And more women of colour suffer with imposter syndrome than...
So imposter syndrome...
So what is it?
It means that you are in a position or you're doing something, but you're constantly in the back of your mind, you're thinking, and now I'm going to be found out. Now they're going to discover that I'm not as good as they think that I am, or as good as I am portraying myself to be. So
you're only where you are because you were lucky, or because you got away with something. You fooled them into, getting somewhere. So sometimes you overcompensate by working too hard or by pretending to be better than you actually even are. But a lot of it is just like, just wait until they find me out. Just wait until they figure out that I'm a fraud. So if you suffer from imposter syndrome, do you yourself believe that you are an imposter?
Yeah.
So it's not the fear of somebody thinking that you're an imposter.
No.
You actually believe.
You believe.
I got this job, but I don't know how that happened. I'm an imposter.
Exactly. So it's not always like that. It's not as strong and it's not as present all the time. It comes in waves. Yeah. And so sometimes you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to make this mistake, and now they're going to discover that I'm not good at all. I have no idea what I'm doing.
So my research, because I've definitely never suffered from imposter syndrome.
Amazing.
I've always believed that everything that I've achieved or earned. I've deserved. So that part of actually that's not completely true. But for the most part, I've always been. This is maybe it's a little bit stoic. I am where I am because of what happened, right? So it's not about being an imposter.
It's not something it's not a perspective thing. It's a fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting, though, in researching it, imposter syndrome is a very modern concept. The academic publications about imposter syndrome, more than half of the literature on it has been written in just the last 8 years.
8?
Yeah. Obviously, some controversy about where it has come from. It's not recognised as an official psychiatric diagnosis, but it's definitely recognised as a very real form of sort of intellectual self-doubt. Because I think to get imposter syndrome, you have to be of a particular type.
High awareness. Yeah, exactly. You have to have like.
Because if you're in a low-paid job and low status, you're not going to have imposter syndrome.
No.
Clearly.
No.
If you've climbed out of that into a different, maybe the whole point there is that imposter syndrome is a reflection of, hopefully, the positive aspect of society where there is a lot more movement and accessibility into jobs or careers that weren't before. Yeah. But maybe the legacy of that is that people still feel this is where I've come from, so maybe I'm an imposter. I don't think
that's where it comes from. I think where it comes from is holding yourself up to very high standards that you're not being necessarily held to by others or by the people who hired you.
Yeah.
But you're always kind of striving to be something, and of course nobody knows everything and nobody is perfect. And so you always, and also because you always strive to be better, you always feel like everybody else around you is better than you, and I am going to do my very best to mask that and to make sure that I'm very good at what I do, so people will never find out that I'm a fraud all along.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot of it comes from anxiety that am I going to be able to prove myself enough all the time, and it's good in a way, so I don't want to get rid of it completely, because then I become complacent. And
it keeps you on your toes, doesn't it?
It really does keep me on my toes, and it keeps me always wanting to listen to things and read things and, be aware of things, because oh my God, like sitting in a room and not being able to understand what's being said, or to be at least, I don't have to participate or dominate the conversation, but I have to be able to intellectually be part of this.
Yeah.
And that's very important to me, and that's where I hold myself to really high standards, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe, I should always get better, and it gives you anxiety, but it's the good kind of anxiety, I hope.
Yeah.
It's not debilitating, it's motivating, and that's what I like about it.
That's really interesting, because as I say, I've always seen it from the different perspective.
Yeah.
And don't misinterpret it as sort of arrogance, but being that sort of middle-class English male going through the English university system, coming out of Oxford, I'm expecting to be the boss. I'm expecting to be given responsibility. It is, so for me, I would never get imposter syndrome. It would be more likely to be the other side of the coin, which is when failure occurs, being able to deal with that, as opposed to having success and not being able to deal with that.
Exactly.
That's really sort of interesting for me.
It is very, very interesting.
So just reading about it, and the original term developed in 1978, so it's still relatively modern syndrome. Yeah. They use the term imposter phenomenon as opposed to imposter syndrome or imposter syndrome. But it's such a wide-ranging term. Underlying causes vary, may stem from perfectionism, fear of failure.
That's exactly what I said.
Lack of self-confidence, external pressures, expectations, societal and cultural factors, parental influence. All of those things can sort of impact really interestingly.
Yeah.
And in some of my readings about it have said that actually now there's been some pushback against imposter syndrome. In the Harvard Business Review article, Tilshan and Bure pointed out that imposter syndrome directs our view toward fixing women at work instead of fixing the places where women work. By this they mean imposter syndrome is blaming the individual.
Rather than saying we're setting them up to fail. Yeah,
so it's Rama's fault that she feels like that. As opposed to, there must be something wrong about this institution or this job or this role or
that's making her feel that way.
This culture that we're working in that is failing to take into account
her strengths
and weaknesses and her feelings and whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting.
It is interesting.
Because we've talked a little bit about this in the past, about women in a man's world. And it's not that... the women who succeeded had to take on man-like attributes in the way that they did their job.
Yeah.
So there's no...
This must be huge in CEOs.
Of course they would have imposter syndrome.
Yeah, because this was dominated by males, and all of a sudden now you have to be, a leader, and you have to. And if you lead with empathy, then you're seen as weak.
Showing maternal attributes is not what we do in this.
Exactly, you have to toughen up. You have to, keep everybody at an arm's length, and and that's not how a woman would lead.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's still rife, isn't it? A boardroom with
10 males and 2
8 blokes
females.
and a token female in them. Of course you would feel an imposter. You're in a completely different world.
And I think that's the word that you mentioned, a token female, because you always wonder, was I chosen for my merit or was I chosen as a token?
So, and the institution is not tackling, the institution.
Yeah.
It's fulfilling its quota.
I wonder if Kamala Harris becomes president, if she will keep feeling this way, because she'll be like, did people vote for me because I'm the token diversity woman representative?
I mean, she's the ultimate imposter.
Exactly.
In many respects.
Yeah, she would feel that way, but I'm sure she's very, very well qualified.
I hope she wouldn't.
I really hope that she wins.
Yeah.
Let's just put that out there.
Gosh.
And I really like walls. Can I say that as well? It's not
Yeah.
related to. I'm positively sure that I like walls. No doubt there.
Yeah.
He's very relatable and likable.
Yeah,
he's just
he's very, very smart without necessarily
yeah,
giving that away.
exactly.
you know.
But he's not in the way like Trump pretends, or he's not stupid. I think he pretends to be stupid. At least that's what I think. And walls.
I'm not going to say on this podcast, but he's orange.
Okay, so I found some things here actually to overcome self-doubt and imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
since you talked about that.
Yeah.
One that I find really interesting is practice self-compassion, because I remember once somebody saying, "Would you say these things that you're saying about yourself to your friend?"
To somebody, that's so true. Isn't
You would
it?
never. You would never say, "Oh, you idiot! You dropped your coffee." Would never. You would say, "Oh, that happens," but you would say that to yourself. "Oh, you're so stupid."
I'm so
Guilty of
when
it?
I talk to myself, I would never talk to anybody else in the way I talk to
Yeah,
myself.
I think we all do. Our self-talk, this constant narrative in our
Yeah.
head is so mean, but it's so kind to everybody else.
You should love yourself more than you love anybody else. Because if
Exactly.
you yourself feel loved and are in a good
Then you
place, you're in a
can-
better position to
To love other people.
love others. Yeah, I was having this discussion with somebody else about doubt over the weekend, and
You talk about deep things with other people than me?
Georgie, at the age of 7, is full of inspiration. No, actually, it was my ex.
Okay.
Who's always interested in what we're doing on the podcast.
Oh.
Yeah. So if
That's
you're
nice.
listening, good. A like and subscribe. But yeah, we were talking about if you don't have the ability, or if you haven't felt self-doubt in your life, then can you show empathy? If you've never felt doubts about yourself, how can you understand
Doubts in other
the
people
doubts
or
that other
shortcomings.
people are feeling themselves? And that's why, I think having some experience of self-doubt, or those kind of we talk about imposter syndrome, I guess, even then it's very difficult for you to understand what other people are going through.
Absolutely. Absolutely is
So if
true.
you think about those really arrogant, cocky, self-confident people like me, I'm not like that all the
I
time.
don't think you're like that at all,
I don't-
actually.
I don't think I
you're
am now,
confident
but
in
I
the
think-
right amount.
I think I was probably worse when I was working in the city, because that was the expectation.
Yeah, you needed to have that
you
big
had to have
ego.
that. But I think in order to be able to show sympathy, compassion, empathy, you have to have experienced some of it yourself.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it's a token gesture.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah, and you cannot understand the weaknesses or the failures of others if you've never felt weak or as a failure at some point in your life. So I
Yeah,
think it's very,
yeah.
very important. Okay, the second one is remember your past achievements. This is a really nice one.
Yeah.
Because whenever you say, "Oh my God, look, I failed at this," but I once did this so well. I did this other thing so well. I can do very well. I am not a failure. I have failed.
Yeah. Because the counter to that is that if you do experience failure and self-doubt creeps in, you begin to question your previous successes.
Exactly.
And you begin to say, actually, I wasn't successful.
That was luck.
Or that was luck.
Or this other
oh my
person did
God,
most
my
of the
whole
work.
life has been a succession of failures and I never realised it.
Yeah.
And I definitely have experienced that.
And you have to stop that. That
Yeah.
negative self-talk, you can allow it to say a few
Yeah.
things, and then you have to be really rational and just look at it from the outside and say, is this true?
Yeah.
Is this not true?
I had to go through that, my story of when I was in Leipzig, and I
Yeah.
had that sort of the perfect storm of things that all seemed to go wrong at the same time. And it was the first time in my life that I'd ever
Felt
actually
like a failure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If things had not gone completely right in the workplace, I could always explain it away in terms of other factors
Yeah.
that weren't me.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy either.
No.
Because sometimes you do have to be reflective and understand your own weaknesses and the part you've played. So maybe I was not very good at that. Then I had a situation where a whole host of things in all sorts of parts of my life, professionally, personally, all seemed to go badly wrong at the time.
Yeah.
And then you are absolutely paralyzed by self-doubt, self-loathing, fear, and it absolutely cripples your ability.
Yeah.
And it's probably the hardest time in my life is to climb out of that dust yourself down and say, well, actually, yes, you've made some mistakes, but so what? That's what life's about.
Exactly.
Learning from it. Don't doubt yourself.
Yeah.
Use this as part
As
of
a
a
stepping
mechanism for
stone.
growth. And yeah.
This reminds me of our previous episode about water, how we said a small drop of it is healthy and a lot of it can drown
absolutely.
you. And you have to really
Absolutely.
climb out of it, and you have to let it shape you and make you better rather than really paralyze you.
Yeah.
Okay, the third one is try not to compare yourself to others.
Well, that's okay for you to say. No, I just said that because I was comparing myself to you. I think that's also true.
Yeah, I think
That's like, that's very much a Stoic view of the world, isn't it? And I absolutely now get that, but didn't when I was younger. That sort of Adam's equity theory. Everything, it's not fair.
Yeah.
Why are they better than me? Or I'm not as good as them. I never will be. I mean, you don't have to be
But
because
you're
you
not
are yourself.
them. Exactly. And what you're good at, they're not so good at, and vice versa.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one.
Be mindful of your thinking. So self-awareness is really important, because this
Yeah.
negative self-talk sometimes is in the background. It's weighing on you, but you're not aware of it. It's wearing you down, but it's really
what
important
is it that
to
is making me feel in
shut
this
it
way?
down sometimes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Spend some time with supportive people.
Mm-hmm.
So not your mother who will always tell you, oh, you're the best, you're gorgeous, you're amazing, everything you do is the best. Not that. But
You never met my mother then. You never met my mother. I don't recall that conversation.
That's funny, because in Arabic we say a snail saw its daughter on the wall and said, a pearl on a string.
Mm-hmm.
That's how mothers see their children. In my
Really?
culture, I don't know about your culture.
I think my mother would speak with her friends and with my brother and sister. I can imagine the conversation.
Yeah.
Oh, Tony, he's fantastic.
Okay.
Oh, he's brilliant in his job, or whatever. But she'd say that to my brother.
Behind your back.
But to me, you're rubbish. That's terrible. What are you doing? She
improve
found
you.
it so difficult to actually give people praise to their face.
I know there are a lot of people like that. You would be
You know?
surprised. I have people in my life who just don't know how to give a compliment.
Yeah.
And you know they love you, they just cannot say it.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, so number 6, find validation from within. So don't wait for external validation, which is really important, but I find myself needing validation.
Yeah.
It's number 7. Go on.
And does it depend on who validates you? Because sometimes some people, whatever they say is not going to have any impact on me.
Yeah, that's true. Exactly. It has to be someone you respect and someone who knows what you're talking about.
And it has to be authentic, back
Yeah.
to that word that we've also
Yeah.
spoken about before.
Yeah.
There's some people who praise you, doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah, and then some people
that
who
doesn't
just
mean
dish
anything.
it out
And
because
some
it's,
people, well
it's their
done,
way.
thank you so much for your contribution. I mean, what does
But
that
like, do
mean?
you even understand my contribution?
do you
Did you
know-
read what I wrote, or did you hear what I said? So no, I hate that.
Yeah.
No, it has to be people who understand what you're talking about.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely have a list of people in my life.
You
who-
trust what they say.
The validation I get from these people is much more valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
then
definitely true.
exactly. No, absolutely. It has to be authentic, and you
Yeah.
have to know these people. Number 7, remember that you're the hardest critic. You're your own hardest critic.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And nobody talks to you the way you talk to yourself.
Definitely. We've talked about that in the context, haven't we, of writing and in music and whatever. And with it being holiday time, it's been like my opportunity to
be
let's
creative.
be creative. And I have started writing things, and I've started composing things.
Nice.
No, because I am full of, that's terrible. That's awful. I'm so critical. Instead of just go with it. Just go with it. Enjoy the experience and
Exactly.
just go with the flow. Don't show doubt. Just go.
Let it out. Yeah.
And let's see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm crippled by this. I'm just
thing
not a
is-
very good. I can't do that very well. Oh, my voice doesn't sound very good. Or
Everything can be
my
improved.
writing's so bad. I can't do that.
I know. I feel exactly the same way. Like, I gave up on writing as well because I'm like, I'm rubbish. Why would I even waste
You're
my
not.
time?
You're not.
Thank you.
You're
But,
not
yeah.
rubbish at all.
Yeah, I have to always keep at it and remind myself that you can improve this. Just don't stop it. If you stop it, you've killed
But
it.
if you go down that checklist of items you just gave
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
you could apply that to your writing, couldn't
It's
you?
true. Yes.
You know, I am sure there are a list of people who can give you valuable feedback.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah,
you
but
get action upon.
I gave up. I just was like, yeah, that's
I
it.
know, isn't that terrible?
It is.
And think about, if you multiply that by all the people on this earth,
Yeah.
who all have got something about them that they have just ditched it, or they've put it to one side because...
Imagine how much beauty there would have been in the world if they let themselves...
Think about the world of... I mean, think about my father, right? He's a very good artist. Mm-hmm. Technically very good. But riddled with self-doubt when it came to doing anything that was not safe.
Okay.
So he paints, he's good at watercolour, he can draw, he can do arts, and if you give him a photograph, he will reproduce that, right?
Wow.
And I said to him once, Dad, what I'd really love to see is just go to a canvas with your paint, because you technically can do everything. You know about colour, shade, perspective, whatever. You've been to art college, whatever. But don't... Oh,
he has?
Yeah, he went.
Oh, wow.
He was at college doing art. So rather than just reproducing something, what I'd really love if you could do for me is just express yourself on some canvas. Because I love, modern art. I love abstract art as well. He can't do it. He just cannot do it.
It's a big risk.
He is absolutely paralysed. Yeah, because of, again, those things you just listed.
Yeah.
But that fear of, maybe I think is it fear of revealing too much of himself might be also part of it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think
also
it's
just
same.
making a mistake, because if you give him a photograph and then he's like, but this is what you gave me, I just reproduced what you gave me.
Yeah.
But if I have to be more, liberal with what I'm seeing, or put my big...
Or maybe worrying about what people are going to think of what he produces.
Yeah.
If you reproduce something, yes, it looks... he's got pictures all over the house, but I don't like any of them.
Yeah, because they're so
safe. I admire all of them as a representation of what he was painting, but none of them ignites a flame in me that says, "Oh, that's amazing." Mm. And
he can. That's why you want him to do it. I know that he can,
but he is. I think he is worried that what he produces doesn't get that response. Therefore, he's a failure. Yeah. Therefore, he's not going to do it.
Oh, what a shame.
And you could apply that to your writing.
Yeah.
And you could apply it to my music. And I'm sure every one of our colleagues, there'd be something in their life where they're not doing it.
They're so good at it, but they're afraid of doing it and failing at it. Yeah,
acting,
absolutely.
Singing, it's a shame, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where does the concept of doubt come from? We love René Descartes.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about him, or shall I? Because Descartes...
It's funny that we both found the same thing.
Well, Cartesian, the Cartesian system, of course, it links to mathematics as well.
I see.
So there's a bit of... this is where philosophy and maths
meet,
and psychology all sort of come together. It's really quite nice.
Yeah.
It must have been very exciting to be around when there were no boundaries between subjects.
Yeah, that's true.
How do you go from psychology and philosophy to maths to music to...
they're all related, yeah. Absolutely. And if you look at the famous thinkers in the past, like Galileo and all of that, they were astronomers and mathematicians and artists and all at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. So you do it.
Well, I know. So Descartes, the discussion about doubt wasn't so much about... We've had that discussion really about our own self-doubt, but it was more about, as I was saying before, in the world of mathematics, this kind of sliding scale of certainty. And so this concept of Cartesian doubt. So...
Cogito ergo sum.
There you go. And linked to the whole school of logic and probability... and a lot of algebra as well. It's all about logic.
Yeah.
So logic was about trying to distinguish between the dubious, the probable, and the certain.
Exactly.
And so much of illogic is about either the assumptions being dubious, the data that you're using being dubious, or the conclusions that you're making being dubious. And And that's, if you think about the scientific method, that it underlines all of our sort of
You have to
causal relationships and whatever.
Exactly.
Then doubt is at the heart of sorting out what fits and what doesn't.
And that's why I think in science,
it's really interesting.
for you to be able to say that something is a fact, you have to run every experiment many times.
Yes.
Because the variables can change slightly, the data might be misinterpreted or recorded or something.
Yeah.
So you really have to run it a few times, and that shows that you actually doubt what you got the first time.
Yeah.
You cannot just go and publish a paper based on one experiment.
Although some people have, and
I know.
And,
we just hear, a study has shown so and so, and you're like, okay, the study was based on 10 people and under certain circumstances, and we have to be really careful with these things.
So that's quite good, isn't it? Dubious assumptions, dubious data, or dubious conclusions will call into question whether something is likely to be true or not. And Wittgenstein, another famous thinker, describes his work was called Uncertainty, or famous work, posthumous work, Uncertainty, and describes how our everyday use of the words doubt and certainty function.
Yeah.
Two concepts interwoven in our daily lives, such that if we can't be certain of any fact, then we cannot be certain of the meaning of our words either. So, yeah, really interesting that it came from, it's not a psychology thing, it's a logic thing. It's all about the logic of making causal relationships happen, and then that has become, we've applied that then to the way that we think about ourselves or the
but it's
world
not
around
just
us.
logic. Sometimes it's also perspective. Like the truth, or what we think is true, and what we doubt, and what we believe 100%. What you think is 100% true can be totally wrong for me, or at least suspicious at best.
Because we're working from a different. It might be the same data that we're both looking at.
We're interpreting it differently.
But the assumptions we make at the beginning, so our context, our starting points are different, and the conclusions we'd therefore make from that will be different.
Yeah.
This is really interesting.
It is very interesting. So shall I read to you a little bit of what Descartes wrote?
Yes, yeah.
So let me read, not all of it because that would be long. So some years ago, I was struck by how many false things I had believed. And this is Descartes who's saying that, which is really amazing that somebody comes out and says, I was wrong, False things that I had believed, and by how doubtful was the structure of beliefs that I had based on them. I realized that if I wanted to establish anything in the sciences that was stable and likely to last, I needed just once in my life to demolish everything completely and start again from the foundations. It looked like an enormous task, and I decided to wait until I was old enough to be sure that there was nothing to be gained from putting it off any longer.
Yeah.
I have now delayed it for so long that I have no excuse for going on planning to do it rather than getting to work. Yeah. So today I have set all my worries aside and arranged for myself a clear stretch of free time. I am here quite alone, and at last I will devote myself sincerely and without holding back to demolishing my opinions, which is fantastic.
Wow.
I can do this without showing that all my beliefs are false. This is also really cool, that he can, I will demolish everything, even what I thought was right, and start again and see if I come to the same conclusion on some things as well, which is probably more than I could ever manage. My reason tells me that, as well as withholding assent from propositions that are obviously false, I should also withhold it from ones that are not completely certain and indubitable. So all I need for the purpose of rejecting all my opinions is to find in each of them at least some reason for doubt. I can do this without going through them one by one, which would take forever. Once the foundations of building have been undermined, the rest collapses of its own accord. So I will go straight for the basic principles on which all my former beliefs rested, which is really scary. I mean, I think it takes great courage to go back to the foundations and undermine those.
We just don't do that very much, do we?
No, we don't.
I mean, I think there would be something hugely therapeutic, but also very painful.
Very unraveling.
If I was to unravel my life and things that I've just assumed with certainty to be true or to be right, and take that approach and apply some doubt to it, to question it, it could be very depressing.
It could. It really could.
It would also be very, very cleansing.
Yeah.
It wouldn't it? But we don't do that. What we do is we apply that kind of approach, that causal reasoning, to the stuff that we observe. And other people's behaviour. We're really good at trying to make assumptions, collect information,
Judgments.
make conclusions about what we see in the outside world and the world around us. But we very rarely
look within.
I mean, gosh, that's something quite profound. When I'm driving home, I think my head might explode now with thinking about that.
Yeah, but I really think, because sometimes we have like this also, when you look at yourself and the narrative that you have woven for yourself,
yeah,
you're like,
yeah.
I am this kind of person, this is my identity. I'm an organized or disorganized person. I'm a logical or illogical person. I'm emotional.
Yeah.
And
this is the story of what happened to me. And it's not up for debate.
Yeah.
This is the fact.
And it's so
No, it's
wrong.
not the fact.
Because then you get the new things.
It's your interpretation.
Exactly.
Based on some assumptions you were making, based on your history, based on what you saw, which was not what happened.
Exactly.
It's only what you
It's relative
observed.
truth. Exactly.
So
to really be able to go back to the basics and really destroy all of those basics and start anew is scary,
I guess
but
the
can be
danger
very
is
useful.
what that teaches me is that, okay, so there are these two states, self-doubt, and then there's doubting outside. But the process of doubting, not the two states, the process is a really powerful one.
Yeah.
And you should apply it not just to what you are seeing in the outside world, social media and whatever, but also to your own story of your life.
Yes.
And dismantle it and see if when you put it back together again, it's the same narrative.
Yeah.
Gosh.
And you may take one pillar of that foundation and add something else instead. It doesn't mean that everything else has to collapse.
No. And it might still be that when you reassemble it, you end up with the same story.
Yeah.
And that in many ways would be validating and would be...
We were like, I was right.
Quite good.
Yeah, but I was very objective about, looking at this. And I think this is where it would help to get some people who were in your life for a long time and get how they saw things when they happened, rather than just how you saw things, and then construct that truth together again.
Yeah.
This is really, really, really therapeutic.
It is, absolutely.
In the world of psychology, they call it, like looking at your inner child, going back to the child, and some exercises include you asking people that were with you at that point what their perspective was, and if they saw it the same way, and if you can keep the same reality or reconstruct it.
That's brilliant. Yeah, love it.
Can I read you... Actually, before I read you something, what is it in Christianity? What is the verdict on doubt? Are you allowed to doubt? Especially religion?
Yes. There's a few interesting things about doubt. Probably the most famous... there's lots and lots of Bible verses that I could quote to you about doubt. Jesus replied, "Truly I tell you, if you have faith and do not doubt, not only can you do what was done to the fig tree, but also you can say to this mountain, go throw yourself into the sea, and it will be done." So, in other words, a lot of the Bible is telling people to have no doubt in the power of God, etc. And, when you feel doubts, this is what, belief in God's power. You can overcome doubt with faith and belief, which is also, I think, is a mantra as well, is valid.
Yeah.
Have confidence in God, the link between doubt and faith. So that's kind of as you would expect, I think. It plays a big part in kind of motivating people towards faith. But the most famous Bible story really about doubt is the story of one of the 12 apostles or 12 disciples, which was Thomas. And there is a phrase, or I don't know whether you recognise it, but to be called a doubting Thomas.
I've never heard that before.
So Thomas the Apostle, also known as Didymus, was one of the 12 apostles of Jesus in the New Testament, commonly known as Doubting Thomas, because he initially doubted the resurrection of Christ. So when he was told of it. So in the Gospel of John, he's told about Christ as risen, and he said no, because that's not possible. But later, then he was shown the wounds of Jesus and where the wounds had healed on his body, and it was proven to him. So in a way, it kind of links a little bit to Descartes. He doubted it until it was proven to him that it had happened. And so that phrase has become part of certainly my heritage, a doubting Thomas, a skeptic who refuses to believe without having direct personal experience.
If you call somebody a doubting Thomas, is that supposed to be like a kind of insult? Is that a dig at someone, or is that praise?
It's more of an insult than praise.
Yeah.
So if I
doubting Thomas.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I said, it's fine, this is going to be good, and you say, I'm not so sure, I would call you a doubting Thomas.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're not going to believe me until you've had proof yourself that something's true.
Whereas we think that's a good thing.
It's not a really bad insult.
No, it's not. It's just like saying, why would you do that?
You're so skeptical, honestly.
Yeah.
What about for you?
In Islam?
Where does Islam talk about
I looked
doubt?
it up, and it's very interesting, because some people interpret it as like, no, you're not allowed to have any doubt. You have to 100% believe God is there, he will take care of you, there is heaven and hell, all of these things. But then I looked at another thing, and this is something that I believe more, knowing, growing up in a Muslim country, is that you can have doubts, but as long as you don't act up on them, and as long as you don't voice them out and rattle other people's faiths, then it's okay. It's okay to have doubt in your heart. You just have to try your best to, like you said, use your faith and your knowledge of the religion as a tool to dissipate those doubts, which is interesting. So this is the view of Islam itself. It's like thoughts, as long as you don't act on them, are allowed. And questioning is okay to a certain degree. You can question, but then you should accept the evidence that's given to you from the Quran as an absolute truth, which is interesting, because like if you want to do like Descartes.
So that's where doubt and faith if you have doubts, you have to have faith that what is
told,
written in the Quran is the truth,
exactly,
without having all of the causality that we talked about with Descartes.
So Descartes would go deeper to the level of like, but does the Quran actually exist? But you can't go that deep in your doubt. But then Sufism, which is as a section or a subdivision of Islam, the mystic kind of Islam, Rumi, he said, doubt is a precipice on the way to God.
Gosh.
Blessed is he who is free from his bonds. So you are not allowed to be dragged down by doubt.
So you have to overcome that.
Yeah.
In order
to be able to function in life properly and be a good person. He who fares without any doubt, adhere to his footprints if you do not know the way. Cleave to the footprints of the deer and advance with care that you may reach the musk gland.
Wow.
By means of such trekking, even if you walk on fire, you will reach the luminous peak. And this is the thing about when you see people walking on fire, or doing all of these things. It's because they have trained their mind to 100% believe something, and they have no doubt, and the mind then allows them to do it.
Yeah, any sort of pain, raising your pain threshold, is about.
It's about your mind and how
mind games.
Exactly. And so it's really interesting how he's saying that no, don't allow doubt to pull you down. You have to follow the deer and know that you will get to the musk gland. Yeah. Which is really interesting. Okay. So I found a poem that goes with this very nicely.
Yeah, cool.
This poem is called Freethinker by Robert Williams Service.
Okay.
I really like it because, you'll see. Although the preacher be a bore, the atheist is even more. I ain't religious, worth a damn. My views are reckoned to be broad. And yet I shut up like a clam when folks get figuring on God. I'd hate my kids to think like me, and though they leave me in the lurch, I'm always mighty glad to see my family trot to church. Although of books I have a shelf, of skeptic stuff I must confess, I keep their knowledge to myself. Doubt doesn't help to happiness. I never scoff at Holy Writ, but envy those who hold it true, and though I've never been in it, I'm proud to own a pew. I always was a doubting Tom. Ha. I guess some lads are born that way. I couldn't stick religion from the time I broke the Sabbath day. Yet unbelief's a bitter brew, and this in arid ways I've learned. If you believe a thing, it's true, as far as you're concerned. I'm sentimental, I agree, for how it always makes me glad to turn from Ingersoll and see my little girls communion clad. And as to church my people plod, I cry to them with a simple glee, say folks, if you should talk to God, put in a word for me.
Yeah, I can, the dilemma that is in there,
Yeah.
I completely
Relate to.
There's this kind of period in my younger life where I did go to church. I mean, I did go to church as a kid. But,
You were a choir boy.
Because I was a choir boy, but it wasn't because of my faith
Yeah.
or my belief. It was because we played football after church. But then you get into that sort of, that you get a little bit older and you're looking for meaning. And I think only for a very, very short period of time did I have what you might call faith, or a non-doubting faith, that sort of blind faith, if you like.
Were you
That
happier?
acceptance. Yes.
See?
Yes,
That's the
definitely.
thing.
Definitely, it was a nice feeling, and it went along with, I did go to church, and you sort of felt, good about yourself. And then the fear and loathing came in, or the self-doubt came in, or the doubt, the sort of
the
stuff
doubt
we
in
talked.
religion, yeah.
And from that point onwards, there were too many questions, too many unknowns, too many assumptions being made for me to be able to accept
I think
the creed and the belief. And I've not been a believer.
Yeah.
I think I'm quite a relatively spiritual person, but
Yeah.
I don't, in terms of
Religion itself.
as such.
Yeah.
I
think there is
can't.
like this comfort in religion in knowing that you are held. This idea of being held, of being, no matter what happens, there's this bigger entity, there is this presence in the world that will always have your back, always do something to, and that gives you so much comfort knowing that God will be there. But I went through things like that as well, where I was like, I had to also go back to the foundations and shed a lot of the practices of Islam and just keep the spiritual side of it. That's when I became a bit of a Sufist or a bit of a mystical person myself, where it's like, no, I'm not going to adhere to the rituals, I'm not going to adhere to the words, I'm going to adhere to the spirit of, knowing it's the universe, it's I don't know, something is there. I believe that there is someone out there looking out for me. Because when things turn really ugly, I need someone to talk to. I need a bigger...
And it's also quite scary to exist in the knowledge that there isn't anybody looking out
You're
for you.
completely alone. And when
are
you
just
die,
a
that's
speck
it.
in the speck of dust, and there is no real meaning.
Exactly.
There is no purpose.
Exactly.
Your life when your life's over, that's it.
That's it.
This is quite scary.
Yeah, and so I think there's this comfort in knowing that, there is a certain religion that will take care of everything. There's a God that takes care of everything. And that sometimes the mistakes you make, you're like, oh, it was meant to be. God wanted me to learn a lesson from this. There's comfort in all of these things, which I totally understand.
Yes. And I, people who do have that strong faith, no doubt at all in their beliefs and whatever, I admire them for that.
Yeah, me too.
And that's fine. So it's not I don't see it as a
Something to
negative
laugh.
judgment on somebody,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah,
And
as
I'm very
long
happy
as
that
they're not so dogmatic about it, and then they
Yeah.
want to impose that on everyone. Like we're having something like that in my family right now, where somebody who's religious is trying to impose their
Yeah.
lifestyle on everyone in the family, and it's really causing quite a stir at the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah,
It's not
absolutely. That
Yeah.
doesn't wash well with me. I mean, what about stoicism?
Yeah.
And doubt. I thought that was an interesting one because stoicism, very much grounded in logic, links back to what we talked about Descartes, about thinking about what you see in front of you, what's happening to you, assessing, making, looking at the evidence, making the right decision based on the stimuli that you're given. So where does doubt come into it? Well, a Stoic perspective, feeling self-doubt is just another impression that we're getting from the world in front of us. So it's something that occurs in our minds and needs to be tested with rationality and reason in just the same way as anything else that we would test with rationality and reason. So in many ways, it is the Descartesian sort of logic versus illogic. So self-doubt can be healthy because it helps you to get to know yourself better. Therefore, you are better able to act upon the world and the things that happen to you. So I think that's quite reasonable.
Yes.
Epictetus. But in the first place, be not hurried away by excitement, but say semblance. Wait for me a little. Let me see what you are and what you represent. Let me try you. So in other words, where you are trying to tackle self-doubt, what does it represent?
Sit with it
What
and
is
explore
What is
it. Yeah.
What are you? What is this about? What do you represent? Let me play with this so that I can therefore, let's not get hurried away by the excitement or the emotion of it, but be rational. So that I think is
I like that.
quite good too.
Yeah. Have you got a reading for us?
I was going to just share a few Shakespeare things with you.
Oh,
'cause
yes.
Again, Shakespeare always has something to say about everything.
Absolutely.
And I was amazed how many Shakespeare quotes I was able to find that feature doubt. And I was amazed how many of them were like, whoa, that's really, really clever. So he talked about doubt in the context of love. And that comes up quite a lot. Where love is great, the littlest doubts are fear. Where little fears grow great, great love grows there.
Read that again, please.
Where love is great, the littlest doubts are fear. Where little fears grow great, great love grows there.
Oh, wow.
So this kind of, when you really, really love someone, even the smallest doubts are to be afraid of or represent a big fear in your life.
Yeah, because you worry that this thing might topple this whole thing.
When the fears are small, when they grow great, then maybe great love comes from that.
Interesting. I don't know how that makes sense, because I feel like sometimes doubt can ruin love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fear should never live your life out of fear. Interesting.
Let me give you another one.
Yeah.
Doubt is a thief that often makes us fear to tread where we might have won.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
That's what you said earlier about all of these people who have some gift that they're not willing to explore because
and
they're
experiences in their life have been stolen from them,
Yeah.
like a thief,
Yeah.
because they have been unable to tread there. Modest doubt is called the beacon of the wise, which again is what we've said. I mean,
Exactly.
Shakespeare was just such a cool, clever man.
He was a cool dude, yes.
A fool thinks himself to be wise, but a wise man knows himself to be a fool.
Exactly.
And that's also that, again, we talked about.
Yeah.
Assessing your own doubts and whatever, and understanding
If
where
you think you
yourself-
know a lot, then that means you're the biggest fool, really.
Yeah.
I think you have to understand that you don't know much. You know very little, actually.
Yeah. Doubt thou the stars of fire. doubt that the sun doth move. Doubt truth be a liar, but never doubt I love.
Oh.
So when your man says that to you, then you know it's true. So yeah, and I could go on, but Shakespeare, amazing. And you also put it in the context of when he wrote this stuff. It's so beautifully written, and it's so right.
Spot on. Yeah.
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 Really good.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I've got a little poem for you.
Yeah.
And this one, I know that we had to fight over a little bit because you wanted to read it and I wanted to read it.
It's good. But it's kind of, I guess it would be, if you said to anybody, can you name me a poem where doubt is one of the main themes? It's such an iconic poem, isn't it?
Yeah. So this is the poem called If by Rudyard Kipling.
Yes.
If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after you're gone, and so hold on where there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son.
Yeah, that's kind of the standard reading at a graduation ceremony, or at somebody's coming of age party or something like that.
It's just packed with wisdom.
It's such a wise template for how you should attempt to live your life.
Live your life.
And so, I mean, it's not just about doubt, is it? There's an element of there about when all men doubt you, make allowance for their doubting too. Yeah. But there's a whole range of different attributes in there. It's such a wise poem.
Exactly, living your life, and it's like, take risks, lose, don't make a big deal out of it.
The rough with the smooth.
Exactly. And also, like Descartes said, rebuild your life with worn out tools. You can do that.
Yeah, I love that. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it all on one turn of pitch and toss and lose. And start again.
Exactly.
Your beginnings.
And not
having that.
Complain about it.
Yeah, so many people have, they are so invested in where they are and where they've got to that they would never take any risks because of their fear of losing what they have. Mm-hmm. Where this is kind of saying, you should... Your state in life should be that shouldn't matter. You should be whole enough that you can start again.
And don't take yourself too seriously. I think this is what I like about it. It's like you can walk with kings but not be too proud, and don't lose your common touch.
Yeah.
Like, don't take yourself too seriously. This is when you lose. You have to just, live honestly and authentically, like you said before.
Yeah, really interesting. What about in in law. Do you know the phrase beyond reasonable doubt?
Yeah.
And this is kind of in my reading and thinking about this podcast. Yeah, the world of law did crop up quite a lot. Reasonable doubt. The benefit of doubt is applicable when there is a reasonable doubt regarding the guilt of the accused. This doubt must stem from a conscientious judicial assessment of the evidence, leading to the conclusion that the accused may not have committed the offence.
Yeah.
So doubt absolutely underpins our whole legal system and whether a jury convicts somebody or not.
If you look at O.J. Simpson, for example, everybody was sure he killed his wife.
Yes.
But there was something missing. And based on that doubt, he was like back in society, acting in movies, having his own shows, you know.
Yeah.
It's crazy just because there is something that could not be proven. But just because you can't prove something, it doesn't mean that you should doubt it. You know, like it's very interesting there. But yeah, I understand that this is the law. And in a court, you have to be 100% sure. You have to have a murder weapon. You have to have the motive. You have to have everything for you to be 100% sure.
If there is anything there where you have reason to doubt,
it undermines the whole thing.
I know. Yeah. It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's so many cases where you do read about it and it's like, oh my God, how did they get away with that?
Exactly.
But their whole system is based around that burden of proof.
Which is good sometimes because a lot of people are thrown in jail for the wrong reason as well.
Absolutely.
And so it's good to have that doubt. Yeah. So where do you draw the line and how do you decide? If you could decide on your instinct, I think you would do so well, but we're not allowed to.
Yeah, but the problem is, right back to Descartes again, the assumptions made, the data, and the conclusion.
Yeah.
The assumptions at the beginning depend on who you are and what your context is. So you think about in a court of law, you're sitting there and you're on the jury. And
you have your own biases.
You look at the witnesses, and your assessment of their reliability in the story depends on, if you're a racist and it's a black witness, then you're clearly not going to be viewing that in the same way. So the reliability, credibility of the witnesses and your view of them through your
experiences
lens, the quality of the evidence, the consistency, the contradictions in there, again, and how you interpret the evidence you're shown. Circumstantial evidence, so stuff that isn't visible. So the doubting Thomas stuff, I don't believe any of that unless I can see it.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of evidence is completely up for grabs as circumstantial. So are we going to allow that? And then can you go in a court case and be presented with somebody and be told a story and throughout presume that person's innocent?
Yeah, I think that's hard, especially if this person is not likable.
Because I think my natural inclination is to presume they're guilty. I find it harder to start with a presumption of innocence and go to guilt.
Until proven
it's
guilty.
More like this person's guilty, but some things have happened and now maybe they're not. Maybe I've got a doubt.
Especially if the crime is so dire, like, a child being raped or killed or something.
Yeah,
and then you're going in with this complete bias.
You'd be so scared, wouldn't you, of making a mistake? And you're bound to be thinking about making a mistake on behalf of the victim.
Yeah, exactly. Not giving them justice.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's but I think really interesting that, in the context of this podcast, this is one part of life where doubt is actually at the heart of the whole system.
Have you seen the movie 12 Angry Men?
Yeah, I love that.
I only saw this recently. I hadn't seen it before. And it was so interesting how the jury went in 100% sure the man was guilty, except for the one person who made them all doubt it.
Who then, took that role.
It was crazy how he planted the seed of doubt, and then it grew from one to the next to the next to the next until they decided that he's not guilty.
Such a tense movie as well.
Crazy.
Atmosphere.
Taking place in only one room, it was insane. So that was very interesting.
Yeah.
Have you got a reading for us?
Yeah, it's nearly time to finish, I think.
Yeah.
I found a modern poem called Jane Hirshfield, written in 2014. And just reading a little bit of background to the poem. So this is about living in a life where everything that you do gets called into question. So impossible to navigate the world without having doubt. And this is about a period in her life where she was close to despair at her own life and the life that she was living in and the news that she was reading, and then trying to find some sort of hope out of that. So I like this, and I like the analogy that she gives to a window, which you'll see later on in the poem. But this is called My Doubt. I wake, doubt, beside you, like a curtain half open. I dress, doubting, like a cop, undecided if it's been dropped. I eat, doubting, work, doubting, go out to a dubious cafe with sceptical friends. I go to sleep, doubting myself, as a herd of goats sleep in a suddenly gone quiet truck. I dream you, doubt, nightly, for what is the meaning of dreaming if not that all we are while inside it is transient, amorphous, in question? Left hand and right hand, doubt you are in me, throwing a basketball, guiding my knife and my fork. Left knee and right knee, we run for a bus, for a meeting that surely will end before we arrive. I would like to grow content in you, doubt, as a double-hung window settles obedient into its hidden pulleys and ropes. I doubt I can do so. Your own counterweight governs my nights and my days. As the knob of hung lead holds steady the open mouth of a window, you hold me, my kneeling before you, resistant, stubborn, offering these furious praises I can't help but doubt you will ever be able to hear. It's quite heavy, but likening doubt, the relationship with doubt, like one of those double-hung windows with the lead, and it's kind of hanging in balance, obedient to its pulleys and ropes.
I love the personification of doubt as well, how she's talking to doubt as if it were a person.
Yeah.
And
it's controlling influence
over me, exactly.
In every aspect. I like that. Go to sleep doubting myself like a herd of goats in a suddenly gone quiet truck. Oh, why are we in this truck? Why are we in this truck? Yeah. So, that was a really good sort of... imagery of somebody riddled with.
I love the imagery of the window, mouth open, like a mouth, like an open mouth. It's really, really nice.
Yeah.
Is there anything we wanted to say before we?
No, I think the only thing that I thought was worthy of mention was just how doubt, I think, has moved from being maybe a negative thing. Oh, you're such a doubting Thomas. You doubt. Oh, God, have a little bit of faith, have a bit of belief. But I think actually now, if you think about our students and the world they live in,
we want them to be critical
doubt
thinkers.
is really a good thing in the age of social media and mis and disinformation. I really hope that my children and my students are healthily dubious about everything that they see.
They question everything.
Otherwise, every email you get from a Nigerian prince, it's or everything crazy.
If Day says, and you just take it at face value and you believe it.
Yeah. So,
Okay. Do we have time for a last reading?
Go on then. I think we probably do. Just one last reading.
It's interesting because this is not really about doubt. But if you look at the whole idea behind it, it's like trying to undermine someone, and this someone keeps trying to rise anyway.
Yes.
And it's a poem by Maya Angelou. It's called Still I Rise. And if you want to watch something truly impressive, watch her read this on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I could never read it like her because she reads and she dances and she performs at the same time.
Yeah.
It is fantastic.
She's terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to read it the regular way.
Good.
You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room? Just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hopes springing high, still I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness. But still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise.
That's brilliant, isn't it?
It's...
In the context of doubt, this is just somebody who any notion of self-doubt is conquered.
Yes.
In every aspect of life where
Yeah.
people around are expressing doubt or, in many cases, hate or loathing or whatever.
Yeah.
That supreme...
That resilience.
Resilience. It's not really confidence, is it? It's just that resilience is the right word.
Resilience.
I will rise. I will.
You can doubt
will
me.
rebound. I will come back. It doesn't matter.
Because if you doubt me and I doubt myself, I am done for.
I love the imagery of diamonds between the thighs.
The thighs, yeah, that was really brilliant. And the whole, like...
My kind of woman.
Okay.
Yes.
With that...
On the note, that was really good.
I don't doubt that I had fun here.
I think there were a few profound moments earlier on in there where I tackling one's own self-doubt, reassessing
Yes,
the
what we
Descartes
thought was
thing.
truth, exactly.
It's really set me thinking about a few little therapy exercises to try myself, because I think that'd be really useful.
I think it would be very useful.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Very
Thank
good.
you. Without a
Thank
doubt,
you.
that was excellent.
Very good. So,
good. Let's do it again, shall we?
Let's do it again. I look forward to it already.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
We hope that you've enjoyed listening to the readings we chose for you today.
And that our musings have ignited your thoughts.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and those you think would enjoy it.
If you have any thoughts, suggestions, or any kind of feedback, please send us an email using the email in the show notes.
We'd love to hear from you with the words that make you. We hope that you've...